to start any blasphemous rumors, but I think that God's got a sixth sense of humor, and when I die, I expect to find him laughing. This is an excerpt from Blasphemous Rumors by Depeche Mode, and I think it's a good way to start today's podcast because we're going in deep on today's rabbit hole. Greg, what's going on, man? It's been a week. How's everything been? You ready to get into this or what?
Everything's been good. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
So this week, Greg, I've been thinking a lot about um, how are people coping with everything. How are people coping with the new lifestyle that we have? Being afraid of everything. Everything is over dramatized in the news media today. Um, you know, Everything's trying to kill us. Whether you live in Australia or you live in the jungles of the Amazon, every something's always after us. And most often than not, we as people tend to believe in a higher something, whether that's um, it's a god or it's a set of beliefs or ideas in order for you to cope with the reality of life. So this whole week, man, I've been thinking a lot about religions, and I went into this rabbit hole that I can't wait to start sharing with you guys. Greg, do you have any personal experience? I mean, we don't have to get into the whole ins and outs of what you believe and to preface this conversation, I want to make things clear. We're not here to talk bad or good or say anything to offend anybody when it comes to your set of beliefs. They're your own set of beliefs. We're no one to judge, but what we are here to do is to question everything. Which is the purpose of this podcast. If you've listened to us before, you already know where to find us. You can find us on at TPP is loading in all the social media platforms. Um, but but anyway, let's get into this conversation, Greg. What's your personal belief of a higher self or a higher power, something out there? Is it the universe? Is it a divine being? What do you believe in, man?
I think that everything was created. It One of the main reasons I think that that has to exist is just like a lot of people say we're a small ant in the big picture, right?
Mhm.
So if you look at what we do to manipulate in that circumstance that I talked about, ants, we make like ant farms. And does the ant see us outside of the ant farm, or does it just know the ant farm? And if we're doing that to something, an ant in this circumstance,
Mm-hmm.
then why is it that something can't be doing that to us? So regardless if it's in the way that we think of it, where it's they have some kind of salvation and they take care of us in the afterlife, or in a sense maybe they're taking care of us now in some kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like we would have to take care of ants in an ant farm because they can't go out and find food. They're stuck in an ant farm. We'd have to supply it to them. So I think a lot of things were designed. I don't know if it's 100% that it was designed and we were created from nothing,
Mm-hmm.
or if we were found by something and molded in the way we are. And maybe they were created.
Well, that's the biggest question that we have, right? As humans, is what is the whole purpose of this? Why are we here? And if we were created, why hasn't he or she come back and announced themselves to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this actually led me to a few documentaries. The first of which, but you know what? Before we get there, I'm going to give you my take on it.
Okay.
I wouldn't call myself agnostic. I was actually raised Roman Catholic because of my parents. And for the longest time, maybe till I was 20, 27, I had a very good connection, I would say, with God and Jesus and whatnot. And actually, I had a lot of faith. Um, but something that happened to me, which is actually where I started to question things, and not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's changed my perspective. It just actually made things a little bit blurrier in a sense. So I can't. I'm not gonna say it's definitive of what my beliefs are. I think I'm open minded. I think I'm open to whatever the reality is. But anyway, when I was 27, dude, as I told you before, my dad passed away, and I was at a church. We were doing this ceremony to celebrate his life when we were 27. We do it every year, and basically, halfway through the what is it, the mass, they started playing a bunch of ads, like commercial ads, and it really turned me off. It was really bizarre. I couldn't even begin to explain to you what my feeling was, being that I was there for for a purpose. I was
Okay.
there to remember the life that my dad lived. It was to uh, keep him in our prayers and everything. And here you have us, 30 minutes into this ceremony. It was literally 30 minutes of ads, and I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what to do.
What do you mean by ads? Like they were advertising the church, or like they were advertising some local community or someone's business within inside the church or something?
So it
What?
was it was different ads for the church, but they were all basically saying the same thing, which
So
was
like,
donate, donate, donate. 30 minutes of that.
mm-hmm.
As if they had forgotten that we because for this particular ceremony, you have to pay. It's not free. You have to pay in order for them to even mention your dad or your loved one who died. So, me and my family, we just didn't know how to feel. So what I actually did, man, was I stayed behind and I went to the priest and I said, "Hey, I just want you to know that this is how I feel. I don't understand if what the purpose of this was. I understand you guys need money. You guys want to rebuild the church, but I've been going to this church for, I would say, 20 years, and they've always said, "Hey, we're going to build a new church. We're going to build a new church. We're going to build a new church." Well, they never built it. It's still the same church. And I mean, I asked them. I said, "Hey, man, like we were supposed to be here to celebrate, like and it wasn't just me, but the people who passed away. There's many people in the temple who were there for the same reason I was, to remember their loved ones who had passed away, right?"
Okay.
So he said, eventually, I I just kept going at him. I said, "Hey, like, what's going on? I don't think this is fair. This is what you guys are preaching. It doesn't make any sense." And he says, You know what? If you follow it up, it you will find more." And this is not me. This is coming from above. And he like just walked away.
Huh.
So I was just baffled. I was shocked actually that he would tell me that, "Hey, this is not what we're this is not like my choice. This is something we have to follow." So that started a whole question that has been unraveling for the past 5 No, well, 4 years, 4 years now.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's what the whole purpose of today's podcast is, man, is to kind of just get get into the topic a little deeper and see what we can understand of what all these organized religions actually mean. What are they doing for us, and are they helping? Are they not helping? Is there some truth to what they preach? So hopefully you guys are gonna be, here for the ride. And if you're watching us live, feel free to leave a comment, engage with us. The more questions, the merrier. Religion is a really big topic. It's something that I don't think that Greg and I can handle on our own. I'm sure it will be many, many podcasts, many, many episodes of this. So engage with us. So anyway,
So
I did.
with that, I grew up in a non-denominational Christian church. It was a small church.
Hang
Most
on.
people.
What does that mean? Mm.
So there's different denominations. So like, I can't even remember all the different types. So it's mostly just the way you see something. So like, there's some churches that will baptize babies, or there's some churches that will allow women to be leaders of the church. There, so it's a lot of small things that don't really matter in the big term of everything. Like, I don't, I don't feel like a baby's not going to go to heaven if they get baptized.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's more or less traditions and differences in traditions. Um, so mine didn't take on a certain role. It was a little bit more um, fundamentalish.
I
Like,
see.
we didn't have anything like added in or taken out. It was kind of what you read is what you get.
I see.
And growing
What?
up, I never really thought anything was weird about it outside of like the singing. I could never get into singing. I think it was personally just me. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
music person, but they would always sing, and they do the same thing. They ask you to tithe, but that's one of the things within the Bible that says give on uh, give a portion uh, of your income to the land, and a portion to the church as tithe, and then spend what you have.
Mm-hmm.
So we would always do that. My parents had us growing up. They would give us an allowance, $10 a week. $1 went to the church, $1 went to savings, and the rest we could do what we wanted with. And so it was more or less essentially thinking of it as, if you don't give money, the church can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a building. You can't have somewhere to go to if no one's paying for it. So that's how I really saw it. And then there were other things where it was like we would do what are they called, like fundraisers, where like
Mm-hmm.
if the youth group, we had a missionary team and we would go down to Peru, so we would try to raise money up into the trip to pay for the majority of the trip. So we would
Sure.
do like dinners where the pastor of the church would do a sermon at the end of the dinner, and we would serve food, we would cook the food, and then we would put on some kind of play or something, some like puppet shows like we were going to be doing in Peru and things like that to raise money. But I don't remember anything like that where it was like we have funerals and weddings in the church,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't like we were charging people just to do services and then advertising other things. Like, sure, if there was a wedding, they'd probably charge the person for the wedding to pay for making sure that you get a sound guy in, or the pastor, or the facilities, because if you're gonna open it up and you're gonna cook food and and you're gonna have to have insurance and stuff like that, obviously. So outside of that, there was never I never felt like they were trying to take money. That wasn't like realistically you had to do if you were to stay open kind of thing.
I think that it's more apparent in some. It's I don't know how to say it.
I think it comes down to circumstance. I think it really does. Because like there's a lot of bad people out there and a lot of bad intentions. And if you so happen to end up in the place where the bad intention is, then that's what you think the situation's about.
Mm-hmm.
And some, I don't know, there's a lot of differences in expectations from different religions that when you step back and try to look at things, you can justify them and at the same time say that it's not justifiable. Like how you were saying, like it's weird that they were asking for donations for all these things
Yeah.
during a what is it called? Is it like a
It's
celebration of
it's
life?
like it's basically the remembrance of a loved one who passed away, and basically, yeah, you just rem- celebrating their life, the life that they had here on Earth with us, and it's supposed to be like a mass. It's dedicated to them. Um, it's I mean that's basically the way it works. And
Okay.
I was just put off, it wasn't the time, I guess. Like it was the timing that really got me. Um, but within the same lines, when the priest told me, he said, if this doesn't come from the church, this comes from higher up. So he was referring to the organization,
Yeah.
you know? And so it made me look into things, man. It made me look into, actually, I got into a lot of bad things. It led me into a place where it was very, very there. I was finding a lot of negative things on the Catholic Church, and most
Yeah.
of them we already know. Some of the most controversial and most known things that had to come out from the Catholic Church has been sexual abuse.
Uh-huh.
It has been sexual abuse of minors, and even in some instances there has been like male escorts who have come out and said, hey, there's this, you know place at the Vatican where I go, and basically have sex with a lot of higher up priests or bishops or cardinals or whatever that is. In fact, I'm gonna find that story really quick so that we can put it up here so we can fact check this.
This is one of the things about the Catholic religion that I've never really understand, and I feel like is kind of where you're going with the sense of seeing all these bad things within the religion
Mm-hmm.
is that Catholic religions seem to be very heavy on being persuaded by the priests and the bishops. You have to go tell them your sin. You have to listen to what they tell you is your punishment, and they're this vessel of God that they're supposed to be speaking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Where where now it seems like your relationship with God is more or less a relationship through someone else to God, and that's one of the things that threw me off about it. That it seemed
Mm-hmm.
like it had too much connection to someone who was a, what's the word? I want to say conduit to God,
Yeah.
and that's why I believe Christianity more because it's all based off of your relationship, and no one else can determine what your actual um, thoughts and actual feelings are. Because you can see me and think I'm sad, but I'm actually happy about something. I'm just not. My face isn't showing it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I feel when I've learned. Christianity is that it has more to do with your actual connection to God than it does what you're doing on earth, your actual intentions.
Yeah.
And only
Uh,
you can really know that.
right. I mean, that's one way to look at it. I mean, everybody has many different points of views and different beliefs, and I mean, for the longest time, all civilizations in the past have had we all have something in common, which is we always believe in something, and no one has just there's just no one single answer, although there's a lot of commonality and things that are the same from civilization to civilization to civilization.
Yeah, like I think there's a lot of good in multiple religions. Like I feel like even if you don't believe in the Bible, that the Ten Commandments is a pretty good staple for everyone to go by.
Uh-huh.
like like even with like Buddhism and stuff, like be nice to your neighbor, like be calm, don't don't
Well,
overreact about things, be one with yourself. Like there's a lot within religions that everyone can take from
yeah,
and apply and are good.
it was very famously said by Jordan B. Peterson, who said that if you act and do as the Bible says, your life will inevitably turn out to be a good life, in a sense, where you're loved by people, you're close to people, and if you just act in that way, whether you believe it or not, and there's something to it.
Yeah,
Things will inevitably happen, uh, that will lead to positive changes in your life. But before we get into that right now, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to read this article here. It's by,
you need to pop it up, right?
let's see, there we go. So this is from, I don't know what this is called. Basically, this is what it says. A gay escort duped into thinking a simple parish priest was a high powered judge pulls the curtain back on the seedy world of priests who pay for sex. So this guy, his name is Francesco Mangicapra. He says that he discovered that the consensual sex for hire relationship he had with, I'm not going to say his name, who he thought was a high powered judge, was not quite what it seemed. Manjikarpra, who trained as a lawyer but who apparently found that the male escort business was more profitable, had made the discovery quite by chance when he recognized his high dollar client in priest garb. He says he then began to wonder how simple priests could afford such expensive dinners, gifts, and his favorite clients bestowed on him. Um, only after a local. Oh, hang on one second. So the experience with the double life priest was not isolated, and Manjikarpra soon learned that most of his clients who were friends of the priest were also members of the clergy, and that he'd somehow found himself quite unexpectedly the favorite boy toy in a gay priest sex ring. He did what any self-serving male prostitute might do and started researching a book about it called Numero Uno, Confessions de un Marchetatro, the number one, Confessions of a Prostitute. So that is so crazy, dude.
It is, but something too. I don't know enough about the Catholic religion to say this, but I think the Catholic religion is starting to be in the sense of saying that like homosexuality is not a sin,
I mean
and
that was recent, right?
I believe it's been recent enough,
I think it
and
was 4 years ago.
and even though it's a sin, like if you look at it in the Christian religion, being homosexuality is a sin, just like
Mhm.
lying to your neighbor is a sin, or going out and killing someone is a sin, or stealing a chocolate bar from the store is a sin. they're all equivalent in the sense of it can send you to hell. One is not more than the other. And so I think a lot of Catholic churches have kind of brought that in the sense of saying you're still welcome. You just need to know what you're doing is a sin. And the other side of that is now priests are kind of doing the same thing, and they don't see a kind of like the what is that called? The irony of it, I guess. If you preach it, but now you're kind of going against what you're preaching. But that's kind of but it's also at the same time, I feel like there is hypocrisy, but at the same time we do know we're humans, and we do know we're going to be sinning all the time. The point is like how I said, it now comes down to you and God at that point. If you understand that you're sinning and you do feel regret, or you do feel sorry, or you do feel the repentance of it, then I believe God would forgive that sin, whatever it may be. And it's hard for us to really understand that, because we see things on a scale.
Yeah, let me give a little bit more insight on this. So basically, Ray, I have I'm not even going to open the article. It just says in 2019, Pope Francis reiterated that the Catholic teaching states that homosexual tendencies are not a sin, but acting upon it is a sin. And that's basically, I guess, what he kind of took that back. And he just took it back.
I'm not saying that this is the same thing, but I've actually heard from a lot of people that I grew up with who were Catholic that you can't have sex unless you're married, but if you do like oral sex or anal sex, it's not technically sex, so you're okay doing it. So I don't know if that also is a kind of a thing that applies to it, because it's now not sex, and it's not, they're not going into it as a relationship. So maybe they feel like they're kind of getting away with it, or it's okay to do, but I can't tell you exactly what that's what it is.
I think I understand what you're saying, but we have to remember that any type of sexual act is still sex, whether it's just like how could they say if you put it in the butt it doesn't count? Like what?
Because the act, hold on, let me get the definition real quick. Because I don't know, it's like saying running and jogging are the same thing. It's technically not. The two words mean something specific. You're doing a similar action, but they're not equivalent. And that's where it kind of gets into that dicey territory of, oh, you think this, I think that.
Well, I think
who knows?
I think that the interpretation definitely doesn't help.
So the noun that I see here is sexual activity, especially sexual intercourse.
Yeah, but intercourse means anything. It means between.
I'm pretty sure sexual intercourse means man and woman.
Well, I mean, we can't. I don't think that's true. I think it just means sexual intercourse, in whatever context it means for you. I mean, it's different for everybody. Sexual intercourse is sexual intercourse. I don't think it's specific to anything.
Yeah, so Webster actually has a little bit more specific. It says either of the two major forms of individuals that occur in many species and that are distinguished respectively as female or male, especially on the basis of their reproductive organs and structures, which means penis and vagina. So it's...
What if you have both?
That's a rare form too. It's like saying that there's people born with two heads. Like, that's not
Yeah,
typical.
I don't think we're gonna get stuck here. I think that the bigger question is, when we have these organized religions, quote unquote cults, and how what they 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 preach something, but they don't actually practice it themselves. It's kind of interesting,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, it's I mean, imagine, Greg, you basically you devote yourself to a higher calling where you become an icon or an idol or a leader in the community who people will look up to,
Mhm.
and you have these strict rules where you can't I don't know, I think some of them can't marry, you can't have sex, you have to abstain from any sexual activities, and you basically you can't sin, and we all know how hard that is.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, how can you expect, I mean, they're supposed to be the divine, right? I mean, I don't know, it's
That's the thing though, is that that's why I didn't understand the Catholic religion, because it seems like we need to put these people on some kind of pedestal, but there's really no one better than you but God in the religion. There's
mhm.
just no one. That's why I never understood the whole thing with the Virgin Mary. Like, yeah, she gave birth to Jesus, but she herself was not special in the sense of like how God is special.
well yeah, I think there's two distinctions. I don't think that they compare her to God. It's rather she's the mother that God chose to bear his child, which was Jesus.
Because don't you pray to Mary?
Well, the thing about that is that it's complicated. You
Yeah.
do, you don't. And
So what?
basically it's just the acknowledgement of the miracle that took place with her. The whole Virgin Mary, an angel came down from the heavens, descended upon her to tell her that she would be bearing a child that would be special to the world.
Weren't there so many other miracles within the Bible too?
Many, many miracles.
So like that was that's one of the things that I see with it that I don't understand, because why don't you acknowledge those the same way you acknowledge her giving birth?
I think that well, see, I'm not an expert. I'm not
Yeah,
um, a devout Catholic. However, I do believe, I'm a believer. I believe in the higher energy. I think that God is. That's what my perception is. But so let me just give you a little bit of context, okay? So I'll watch this documentary. It's called the Guadalupe, the a living image. You can find it on Amazon Prime, and basically they tell you the story of how the Virgin Mary comes to Mexico, and she has an apparition who to the name is Juan Diego. He was walking around in the mountains, and she just appeared there for him to see, and she chose him for a specific reason. He didn't know what to do. The first thing he did was run to the church and tell the bishop, like, hey, I just saw the Virgin Mary, and she wants us to build a temple on this mountain. And the bishop dismissed him. So this happened twice. Actually happened three times. The second time she did the same. And she said, go tell the bishop that please build me a temple on this mountain. And Juan Diego, he at this point he didn't know what to do. And he says, he went back to the place where he saw her, and he says, Mary, give me a sign. I don't know what to do, they won't believe me. Give me a sign. So she says, come back here tomorrow at this time and you will find the sign. Okay. So he didn't show up. He didn't show up because his uncle fell sick. And he was in bed. He was bedridden and he was on the verge of dying. So, a couple days passed by. Then Juan Diego comes back to the little mountain and then he sees flowers that don't grow in Mexico. They don't grow in this area. They don't grow in they don't grow in this region, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she told him, Juan, take these flowers, take them to the bishop, and don't show anybody else. Well, he did that. He went. They had the first people that met him had him wait for a while. He eventually then met with the bishop, and then the bishop says, "Where's the sign?" And then he basically unveiled his gavan, which is the cloth that he wore, in order for him to show them the flowers, right? Like, hey, these flowers uh basically grew here. They're not native to this area. And so upon doing that, there was an image of the Virgin Mary imprinted on his cloth. And then that's when that was the miracle. Everybody believed him and they did just that. They built her temple there. And it basically, the documentary is very interesting in the way that they it's really interesting that they kept the cloth. Now, I was trying to do some more research to understand if it was the actual cloth that Juan Diego had, and it's kind of there's a lot of gray area, but
Mm-hmm.
it's said that it is. And basically, what they say is that NASA, a team of NASA engineers, did many studies. A lot of people have done research on this cloth, and they can't tell how this cloth that was made by agave fibers has lasted so long. I forget the exact how many years has it been. Let me see.
So
So
there's been
it
a
was,
lot of circumstances like that through the years. It doesn't necessarily have to do with that, but like when it comes down to like the pyramids and how they're aligned on the earth and other things like Noah's Ark, they said they've found Noah's Ark. Talking about like the Dead Sea Scrolls, like there's so many things throughout history that seem to be not completely explainable,
mhm.
and it gives me a guess as to like they just signed that stimulus, right? And they put in that like 180 days to release everything about UFOs.
Mhm.
And we think about UFOs as these ships or something. Like what if it's just what we think angels are, or we're misunderstood in the sense of what we think an angel is? What if what we think angels and God is actually out there in the physical form, but we've perceived it some other way? Like what if wings was just the way they
Yeah,
breathe in space or something?
yeah.
Like
So I understand. Okay, so this is
uh-huh.
where it gets interesting. So I'm gonna pull up a picture of that. Where is it? Oh, here. Can you share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is apparently it's the original picture.
Okay.
The cloth, right? Basically,
Wait, that's the original clock?
uh-huh.
So you're telling me that this just appeared on the guy?
No, do you know what? I don't think this is the one.
I feel. Oh, okay.
It
I
was
was imagining something like how how some people like get toast that has the a picture of like Michael Jackson and they sell it and you can kind of see like it looks like Michael Jackson, but that looks like someone painted it.
yeah. No, this is I think is enlarged, but it's supposed to be like a Gavan, maybe this size.
Yeah.
And so you'll see here that they say so NASA publicized results of the related examination of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It was established with instruments of the eye specialist that in the picture, the eyes of Mary's retinas was exposed to light similar to the human's eye, ex- expand and contract. The researchers have also concluded that the temperature of the cloth where the image can be observed is permanently 36.6 degrees, such as a healthy human's body temperature. The image has also been examined with a stethoscope. The scientists have measured a pulse of 115 beats a minute at Mary's belt, which corresponds with the number of fetal heart rate, which means that it
That,
coincides with the theory that she gave to birth to Jesus. Um,
hold on one second. You're about to read it, and it I'm tripping. Is NASA not the NASA I'm thinking about?
no, it is.
The space NASA.
Yes.
Did you,
Like,
did I not just talk about space like UFOs? Why is NASA doing this? Out of anyone who could do it, why is NASA doing it?
this is where it gets really interesting, dude.
What the hell?
So, so NASA engineers have also stated that the paint, so this the paint, so you have to
Okay.
imagine, so the cloth, it was an apparition of the Virgin Mary, right?
Yeah.
So it was painted as if somebody painted it
Mm-hmm.
with perfect colors.
Yeah.
So they stated that the paint with which the image was made does not exist on Earth and has never existed. In the beginning of the 20th century, a bomb was detonated next to the image. As a result of this, everything was destroyed in a large circular radius. The image, however, remained intact. So this,
What?
so, so this is like, it has to, you have to question things like, okay, maybe I don't believe in the Catholic Church, but when I hear these things from actual researchers who did the research on the cloth, and they can't explain how this image on this cloth lasted so long for so long,
See,
like,
it's weird too because why does that hold any significance to anything though? A cloth with a picture of Mary on it. What is that? Like I can understand Noah's Ark like being around still because it actually served a purpose. But
huh?
like what does that actually serve? I guess you said it was a way of showing like that they were actually present.
So at this
That's
time, I believe that there was a lot of famine in Mexico. There was a lot of like, I think it was during the time of war actually, and people were disparaged, and they think that's the reason why she came as an apparition to Juan Diego as a sense of hope, because I don't think that this was introduced to them yet at this point. So if I'm going to share my screen one more time
yeah, maybe NASA is just trying to get to heaven and not really trying to get to space.
to the heavens, right? So
Yeah.
if you look, Greg, if you look here,
Okay.
it shows this. So for the people that are just listening to the podcast, I'm showing a picture. If you want to just go on Google and type in Guadalupe golden ratio, you'll see the painting that I'm referring to. And basically, in this painting, you can see the golden ratio, which is used everywhere amongst all life forms. The fact that somebody was able, like, who was going to know that back then? When you have these Mary Indians, which that I think that's what they're called. How do they know how to paint this perfectly in such symmetry? The colors. There is like a lot of hidden messages in the cloth. Like for instance, if you look closely into the I forget what this is a cloth is called, but it has constellations of the exact. So researchers have been able to go back in time and to see, you know, how we can kind of look forward in time and then in the past by the view of the stars, by the
Yeah.
position of the stars.
Yeah.
So her mantle is exactly coincides with the exact date that the apparition happened, and that's the mantle represents the constellations that were present at that time on that day.
Okay.
And the apparition happened during day. So who how could they have known what constellation was there at that time?
Oh, you mean those stars were aligned like that when it was daytime, so you wouldn't have been able to see
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Exactly. So
Okay.
there's a lot of little things like that that really caught my attention, man.
Interesting.
It definitely has made me question things more.
The thing that's making me question the most is NASA doing it. If anyone else was doing it, I'd be like, whatever. They're looking. But NASA, does NASA do things I'm not aware of now?
Oh, 100%.
Well, no, I mean like they focus on going to space and space stuff. Like, why would they spend the time to analyze this clock? Like,
I mean,
how does that help them with space?
dude, Chris Ayala just said NASA never access space again. Oh shit, son. Oh. So
That's so interesting.
check this out. Um it says here on the other article I was reading, it says Adolfo Orozco, research physicist, reports that there is no scientific explanation for the still surviving tilma. Over 10 years, similar clots become ruined by the local moist, salty air. The copy, for example, which was made using the most advanced technology in 1789, was placed behind protective glass, totally faded for 8 years, in contrast to the original unprotected tilma, which has not been damaged after more than 100 years by the UV rays, the moist, salty air, and tens of thousands of lit candles near the image. So that's it's definitely very, very interesting, dude.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard about this before, but I didn't read much about it.
You didn't go deep,
Very good
homeboy.
find.
Yeah, dude, it's so like I said, it's like maybe I lost faith in the organization rather than the faith in God, basically.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, what else did we get into? We watched the I watched the Secrets of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I learned a little bit about the people, the Essenes, who do you have anything on this, Greg?
yeah. So um, the term you just said, I'm not. I didn't hear much about it, but I heard the story of how they found the scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm probably gonna pronounce it wrong. Bedouin shepherds. There was a shepherd boy from the region that was out. I'm assuming he was just out walking around with the sheep or out for a walk or something. He was strolling around some caves and ended up going inside, and he saw all these like urns, and he saw the scrolls, and that's how they discovered them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the scrolls were written by a group called the Essenes. I
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. So I was reading it differently. The Essenes group was highly educated priests of the time who were thrown out of Jerusalem,
Mm-hmm.
and the scrolls are kind of what they thought Jerusalem uh, should be, and that
Well,
Jerusalem was like unpure, and they wanted to like destroy it.
yeah. So let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
So the conventional theory is that some of those works were written or copied by a zealous Jewish sect,
Mhm.
identified by most scholars as the Essenes, who led an ascetic life in the desert. However, there is now general agreement that the collection also includes scrolls that originated from outside the sect, written by other learned individuals of that period. Accordingly, the questions of which texts are unique to the sect and which were brought in from outside are crucial for understanding the significance of the text and to what extent they presented the ideas in currency in Judea of the latter Second Temple. So basically, like you said, there was a group who kind of broke away from civilization because they had this knowledge that was passed down, then written down, and basically they were awaiting for the return of the prophet. And
Yeah.
so they waited there for, I believe it was 200 years. And it was a little, I forget what the place is called. Did you have that?
I don't have it written down. I knew if I wrote it down, I would mispronounce it.
So basically, it was near a cave in the Qumran
Yes.
area west of the Dead Sea. And so these people there, they wrote down much of what, I don't know if you would consider like the beginning of Christianity, like the same concepts, the same knowledge that was passed down to them, and basically they were just trying to protect it. I mean, at that time, I think Rome was invading, and so they hid it in the cave, and then I forget how many years later, like you said, a shepherd named Muhammad, he entered the cave. In it, he found uh, jars of containing parchment scrolls wrapped in linen. And so, I mean, this is where people think that the Jewish sect sprang up during that time, one of which would morph into Christianity.
Camera keeps going up. I don't know why.
But so was this ever taught in any of the sermons, or the time that you spent with, because you went to an all Christian school, right?
Yeah, but the stuff like
History? They
that,
teach you
or I went for
history?
3 years. Yeah, but it the history we did was not. It wasn't any different than history would have been done in a public school. We did, however, have a Bible class, and in the Bible class, it was strictly the Bible. It wasn't like history of the world and things that have happened. It was just strictly like the Bible, like memorize Bible verses, understand meanings, stuff like that. So we didn't really talk about this, but within the documents, it's said to be the oldest Bible. Oh, sorry, the oldest Bible, um, called the Great Isaiah Scroll.
Mm-hmm.
The oldest document that we have that's the Bible, and it's supposed to hold up to the Bibles that we're printing to this day, which is kind of a big a big deal because it kind of shows that we haven't like whittled it down in a sense. We didn't take out what we wanted and put in what we wanted. It's
Mm-hmm.
been consistent for, it says,
Millennia.
over 2,000 years.
For millennia.
Yeah.
You
And it
know what?
also supposed to be the oldest document of the Ten Commandments as well.
You know what's really interesting
Hmm.
is that when they found these pieces, they found about 25,000 fragments
Mm-hmm.
where it was all like a jigsaw puzzle. They had to put things together in order for them to decipher what they said.
Yep.
And so imagine, first of all, this was so powerful that it made a group of people leave civilization in order to protect knowledge and await a prophet. Imagine that. I mean, the size of the people, the community must have been, at least a hundred or a few hundred.
Think of it, they got cast out of Jerusalem. If be the size of a church,
Uh huh. It was
maybe
like a
a
little.
church got kicked out, kind of concept. Be the easiest way for us to see.
And then, so imagine that much work went into keeping the knowledge. So when researchers got into actually finally researching this, there's 6 steps that they had to take. So first, they collected all the crumbs containing antiquities. Um, Israel antiquities. Authority staff scraped crumbs from scroll fragments and placed them in test tubes. Then you have to transport them to a lab. I think they took them to Sweden. Then they have to release the.
I love how it's just transport them in backpacks. Like you're telling me you took all these little fragments, put them in a tube, and then just put them in a backpack. You didn't have some like
Right.
secured hard case, temperature control. Like
It says release of DNA. So crumbs transferred to a test tube containing a liquid that dissolves the cells and extracts the genetic material from the crumbs. Then the replication of DNA. Special enzymes in the liquid replicate the genetic material in millions of copies. Then 5, sequencing of genetic material. A genetic sequencer reads the bits of the replicated DNA and transmits the information to a computer. Then connecting the sequences with the computer, algorithms reassemble the DNA sequences and remove any genetic contamination. It is now possible to compare the DNA sequence of the fragments. So they
all
had
right,
to do this in order for them to fit the jigsaw puzzle together, because they
mm-hmm.
weren't sure that if, I mean, it took them years and years and years to do this. Imagine you have 25,000 fragments of this parchment paper, right?
Yeah,
You have to test every single piece to match another piece that was, because back then they wrote on dried goat skin. So they needed to match the DNA in order to find out what group that piece of paper belonged to.
uh-huh.
So there's people who dedicated their lives to this project, dude.
Yeah. It's actually really interesting when you look at where the scroll is displayed.
Uh-huh.
You can see how much work went into it.
Can you
It's
show us a
really.
picture for the people watching live?
Let me bring one up. But something that I saw too that was a little interesting is that it says it has every part of the Bible except for Esther.
For what?
For Esther, the book of Esther.
What is
So
that?
there's like there's the different books within the
Oh,
Bible,
oh,
the different
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah. Hmm.
and it doesn't have that. So I don't know if that means anything, but uh,
Hmm.
the image here. I feel like it would be a cool thing to go and see. Like I went to Washington. Um, all right, here I'll say after this. So this is how they display it. It's a giant circle,
Whoa.
and they have them all spread out and displayed there. So you can walk around and you can see it well lit.
Where is this?
This is in
Israel?
Israel, I'm assuming.
Oh, you know where they are? I think that they're at the Israel Museum called, I think also known as the Rockefeller Museum.
Um,
Did you know that?
I don't think that's what it was called. Dead Sea Scrolls.
No, Chris. Actually,
It's in
yes, I
Den.
have watched the Da Vinci Code. I don't quite remember it though. I think I need a refresher on that.
The Da Vinci Code is crazy. I actually was talking about that today. As saying one of my friends, he doesn't. He likes to learn, and if he can't understand it and he's not smarter than you at it, he gets really upset. And so I refer that he's that one guy who whips himself in the back, like trying to punish himself.
A
That
masochist?
and that, I guess if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I can't find the name of the place. I keep
Yeah.
seeing that. I guess they brought some of the Dead Sea Scroll to Denver, and it was on display.
Let's see.
Well, that was weird.
Yeah, you just put museum in Jerusalem. I think it's the Rockefeller Museum. Yeah, so the Rockefeller Museum, formerly the Palestine Archaeological Museum, which is located in East Jerusalem, houses a large collection of artifacts unearthed in excavations conducted in mandatory. I think this is where they are, man. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But don't you find that interesting that it's a big name it's a big family name that we all know. If it's a one of those families that are said to pull the strings on the world.
Who are you talking about?
The Rockefeller Museum,
Oh, okay.
the Rockefeller name.
I wasn't piecing that together. it I don't know. There's a lot of stuff like that because if you think about it, how even writing, just being able to write that information, most people didn't know how to read and write back then. So these people were documenting something they found to be very important.
Mm-hmm.
Would they have spent all that time documenting that stuff and being cast out? Like usually, if you'd have to be a really smart person to be able to do that back
Mm-hmm.
then. Like those would be people who are very well educated, regardless if they know what they're doing or not. Like you could say there are very educated people who are also not very smart. But like you can clearly tell that these people had to be educated in some sort of way, and we now even want to look back on that to see why people were doing this and what we could do to better ourselves or to get
Well,
more strength.
what's interesting, it says that in recent years, the theory about the Qumran scribal practice came in for criticism. But now the researchers have shed new light on the subject. Until now, this group of scrolls was characterized according to philological markers, and now we have also biological markers, which means that they can identify when they were written and where they were placed, where they came from, and all of that. So,
Hmm. The another thing I was watching them um, do stuff like within the lab when they would like try to piece pieces of the scrolls together,
mhm,
that they would actually put some of them like not on a scanner, but they would use a computer to change the lighting. And as you change the lighting, you could kind of see like the bleeding of the pen through the paper,
mhm, mhm.
and you could see more
Yeah, I think it was
than the naked eye could.
infrared lighting, I believe. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, imagine, Greg, religion will shift perspectives. It will shift the world in many ways. It will move people, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting how much religion has an impact on people. In fact, wouldn't you say that during these times of despair, um, religion and faith and in a higher power is actually sort of, well, you can use it as a coping mechanism. It will definitely be helpful if there's something that you believe in that is said to help when you pray. Um, there's many upsides to being part of a community who believes. You have a sense of community. You have people around you who love you. Um, I mean, particularly during this time, I think for a long part of my life, I had kind of forgotten, this whole sense of belonging to a religion. And like I mentioned before, I kind of fell out of it because of a personal experience with the church. But just kind of researching all of this, it's kind of shed some light into perhaps what might be a new beginning for me in terms of faith. Um, but I'll see where that goes.
I do want to share really quick. This is a better picture of what the Dead Sea Scroll looks like. It almost kind of looks like a circular stamp that they put the scroll around. That looks like a stamp, doesn't it? Or almost kind of even like a spinning top, like a dreidel-ish kind of thing.
Yeah, I wonder what that's supposed to represent.
But I just want to share that because this actually gives you the whole picture of it. Because it's within this dome. And on the outside of the dome, they actually shoot water at the dome. Because it's supposed to like help with the temperature within inside of it and
Hmm.
preserve the scrolls better.
Huh.
That'll be interesting.
There was another documentary I watched, which was called "One Day in the Haram."
Okay.
It's basically it's a glimpse inside Islam's holiest site. So it's actually um, this one is it's located in Mecca, the Great Mosque of Mecca, and it's basically this. It's this basic. It's a cube. It's a black cube.
Yeah, I'll bring it up right now.
It's a major focal point, which what it represents, how it's maintained, which prayers are said there, and when. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it here.
Is that where inside of it there's supposed to be like treasures and robes and stuff,
I
and
don't.
that you're not supposed to lay eyes on it or something like that?
I don't know, dude. I mean, it was basically just telling you more about the magnitude of this, like this belief, this idea, the magnitude of how it just shifts people. For instance, there's a hang on. I keep forgetting what it was called because it's in a different language, so it didn't stick well.
Okay. Oh, the movie was in or the documentary was?
I mean, yeah, it was. It had English commentary, but most of the words and the phrases that they use was in a different language.
I kind
Uh,
of feel like I have seen it. Now that I saw the picture of it, it looks a lot more familiar.
uh huh.
Oh, this is interesting. It says spent over the director. I'm probably gonna destroy the name. Abrar Hussein spent over a year researching different aspects of the Haram, a place so revered that non-Muslims are forbidden from even setting foot in it, to bring
Hmm.
a complete vision of the workings of the Haram. Interesting.
Yeah, so you have to be a practicing Muslim in order to be able to set foot there. It says here that the pilgrimage to a holy site is a principle of almost all faiths. The Kaaba, meaning cube in Arabic, is a square building elegantly draped in silk and cotton veil. Apparently, that um, cloth is the most expensive cloth in the world. Rightly so, you know.
Well, because they can't really sell it. That's the thing when it's one of a kind, it has a story, and no one's gonna get rid of it. You can't just get rid of it. Like if someone were
So
to have bought it,
no,
like
dude, it has. So apparently, it's lined with gold and silver. Like it's got phrases in like laid out throughout the whole cube on every side, and yeah, apparently it's the most expensive cloth in the world.
isn't there supposed to be said? Um, I don't know if it's in Jerusalem too that they have the robe of Jesus, and it's been widely like criticized by people within the religion and not in the religion.
Wait, say it again.
Don't they have the robe of Jesus? Don't they call it something? What's it called? Uh, yeah, it's right. It's let me find out where it is.
While you find that, I'm gonna share this with you. So Chris just said, "What blows my mind is the potential list in translation. Just knowing English and Spanish, I often find it easy to lose intent, meaning, and verbiage in translating." That's very true. Now imagine doing that to a book hundreds of times in dozens of languages. It's also very true, and I actually find that quite impressive. That a book can be rewritten in many different languages but still hold its meaning. That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
so it's called the Seamless Robe of Jesus, and let's see. They have it. I'm just trying to find out exactly where they have it displayed. Is it Greece? No. Here, I'll show the picture of it first. So it's kind of this oval, kind of almost looks like an eye. So like there's like there's an eye going around, and then there's a circle in the middle, like the eye. What is it called? The iris of your eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pupil,
Oh,
and
whoa.
inside the pupil is a robe,
Uh-huh.
and that's said to be the robe that Jesus wore during the crucifixion.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
That's supposed to be the one?
yeah, but it's been very widely like criticized
Why?
because there's not enough proof for it, I guess.
Is there DNA evidence?
Well, is there DNA evidence of Jesus? Do we have Jesus's DNA? Like, what do you
What
mean?
wasn't there a I remember that there was like an article in 2012 or something like that where they actually found what appeared to be the human's remains of Jesus.
um,
Did you hear about that? You remember that?
I mean, I hear
It's
that's.
everywhere.
I'm sure I've heard it plenty of times. Come on, it's like not telling me where. And on the mini, worldwide, yada yada yada. No,
So,
I haven't heard anything that people are claiming that it is. I've heard over the years I've been alive that people claim that these bones are Jesus Christ and those bones are. And so I never thought, but at the same time, like, does it really matter if they're his bones? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not praising his manly flesh or anything like that. You know what I mean?
hmm
Like that doesn't get you in heaven if you find his bones and you touch them or anything like that. Like that almost seems like you're going against the religion. You're using his bones as a sense of like idolism,
yeah.
and that's another sin. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
it's cool. Like sure, if we found the bones or we found the robe and we put them on display, cool. But don't go around saying like come and touch the robe and it's gonna give you healing powers. Like the
Yeah.
robe is not what healed people. He is what healed people.
Right. So before we move on from this black cube, I found this on the internet, and full disclosure, the the website is called Alienation Corporation. So be advised, it may be very it might be out there, but I'm just
what
gonna give it a go.
what was it called again?
Alienation Corporation.
Jeez.
so they talk about this black cube, right? And they're wondering, is it indicative of global occult worship? Is it
Okay.
a not so secret blueprint of the next biggest technology in the making? Is this cube a symbol for yet another state secret dealing with the extraterrestrials? Regardless of whatever the black cube symbolizes, the fact is undeniable that this cube box is a great mystery which, with the evolution of the internet and growing human interest, can no longer be unveiled, can be viewed under abstractionism. So there's a few things. Number
Okay.
one, oh,
Well,
excuse me.
let's see.
Thanks. So number one, um, let's see here. So the historic relevance that surrounds Saturn is much larger than the planet's size, which is the second largest in the solar system. A giant ball of gases, which with stunningly beautiful gaseous rings. Saturn's connections with religion and ancient societies are expansive. Named after the Roman god of wealth, Saturn's astronomic symbol represents God's sickle. All the questions and mysteries surrounding Saturn starts with the eerie rhyming of this gorgeous planet's name with the god's archenemy, Satan. By just removing the R or silencing it, the word literally spells and sounds Satan. The biblical villainization of Satan is deeply rooted in the obsession of the satanic powers with wealth accumulation. Is it then a coincidence that Saturn is named after the god of wealth himself? Is this naming a chillingly accurate means of labeling this planet the god of Satans or the Satan of gods? Maybe. Another strong indicator of the close relationship between Satan and Saturn is number six, a truly prolific number in the study of Satanism and religion. It is common knowledge that the number of the beast, as termed in the book of Revelation, conjoin to form the number of the beast. Okay. Also known as the devil's number, the number six brings up just too many times to be a coincidence with the correlation to Saturn. So, what correlation, you may ask? Number one, Saturn is the sixth planet in the solar system. Number two, Saturn forms the name Saturday, which is the sixth day of the week. Saturn's north pole is six-sided. Saturn has six most well-defined rings. The seventh one is quite faint. Apart
But there's seven though, so
right.
that boom, got to throw that one out.
Apart from the connections between Saturn and six, the similarities between Saturn and Satan are plenty too. In ancient Babylon, the in ancient Babylon, the people of Babylon, who were pioneering technological geniuses of their time, constructed a very tall hexagonal tower that had a cube at the very top. Atop this black cube, Babylonians climbed up to fight Satan himself. The tower was also constructed facing Saturn itself. The story raises many questions, but the most pressing amongst them is, how did this ancient nation know where Saturn was? Saturn's exact shape, rings, and beauty have been the subject of poems, fables, centuries old, much earlier than the Galileo's telescopic invention. The level of information on Saturn and its accuracy amongst ancient populations is a proof that Saturn's history has much more to unearth than has been discovered by the Renaissance men. Okay, so let's so now this is where
Why? There's an image on that video of Santa Claus flying to Saturn. Oh,
clickbait,
that's
huh?
hilarious.
The clickbait. But you see that I don't know why they represent this black cube here to be, in conjunction with what they just mentioned.
Ah, it
The
kind of looks like in the Avengers, the Tesseract, but the Tesseract is blue.
the tesseract.
The Tesseract, yeah, because he gets it from off planet too.
Uh-huh. It comes from our planet, huh? It says so in the theorizations regarding these geometrical shapes are myriad and unbelievably creative. However, answers from the state in science are nil. If account religious aspects from the Kaaba to Jewish headgear and the Buddhist stupas, big black boxes symbolize something sanctimonious or God himself in various religious beliefs. Saturn and the black cube to collide at a religious intersection, one that is ruled by Saturnian cults. These cults have worshipped Saturn and Satan for centuries now. Members of these cults, according to non academic reports, so just people on the street, are persons with significant wealth and local influence. No contemporary confirmed members have been outed as of yet. So, whew, I mean, there's a
So,
lot.
so we should just get a bunch of like black cubes and walk around to elite people and just hand it to them and see what they do.
Well, remember GameCube?
Oh,
Bum,
GameCube.
bum, bum.
The
Oh, man.
Dreamcast. They were trying to put us into a dream.
Dreamcast. Man. What's another one? What's something that's cube like nowadays?
Those monoliths.
No, I think they were triangles.
Yeah.
So
Cubes? I'm not sure. Trigger cubes?
Chris says, speaking of using his bones, watch the movie Mother featuring Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. It speaks to religion, idolizing, and its effect on humans and Earth. Ooh, that sounds like a good movie. By the way, Chris, what do you think if we were to do a movie night and we kind of sort of do some commentary on the movie while maybe we can? I think Greg, you mentioned something that we can stream somewhere on Twitch. There's a way to stream movies, but obviously everybody has to have their own user and pass.
So we would just have to put like the time up on the screen. So like if I screen captured the time on, let's say we're watching it on Netflix or something,
Mm-hmm.
when we pause it, they pause it. So they have to keep control of theirs, and we just keep the timing on our screen so they know where we are within whatever we're watching.
Either that, or we just do like a synopsis of the movie. There was this Chris, Greg. There's a movie I just watched that turned the tables for me, man. It
Yeah.
just turned me inside out, dude. It was bad. It's called Suspira. I think it's on Amazon Prime. Let me check. Dude, this movie is insane. If you guys have Amazon Prime, go watch Suspira. I wonder if Greg will watch it with me on a movie night. I don't know. I think he's kind of squeamish when it comes to these kind of things.
I just don't like horror movies.
It's bad. It's like you're thinking like The Grudge. No, it's like 10 times worse than that.
Nah.
The movie is basically about a it's a like it's like a dance academy with witches,
Oh
but
hell no.
it's fucking crazy. It's so crazy. Like I was watching this with Sergio, and I actually had to pause the movie and kind of look at him and say, "What the fuck are we watching?" Like, what are we watching? This is too crazy. I'd never watched a movie like that.
Like
It
some
was
people say, y'all need Jesus.
it was bad. It was really bad. Like I
So
definitely, yeah, it was bad.
I found where the robe, Jesus's robe, is displayed. It's in a, I might mispronounce it, but Trier in Germany.
Uh,
So, but see, like that's one of the weird things is where was Jesus crucified?
well, he was crucified by the Romans, right?
Yeah. So would they not have been in Rome?
Okay, why don't we take a look?
So how did it end up in Germany? I mean, if you think about it, if someone saw this
Backpack.
guy, they put it in a vial and took it on a backpack on a plane to Germany.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
sure, maybe they found it somewhere else and then they brought it here. But
according to the New Testament, Jesus was Jesus was crucified at a spot outside Jerusalem called Golgotha. I don't know how you say that, which in Aramaic means place of the skull. The Latin word for skull is Calvaria, and in English, many Christians refer to the site of the crucifixion as Calvary. Whoa. Wasn't that the name of?
the school I went to, yeah.
See? It's all connected, Greg. We're in the Matrix.
So okay, but I mean, that's nowhere near Rome.
But the Romans were actually taking over the world. They were one of the
Yeah.
people that were taking over many countries.
Oh,
And
sure.
if you go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found a jar, right? And on the jar it was written Roma, which means Rome. And I wonder if they kind of just left that as a hint, like Rome was coming, and that's all. Like that's what we had to. We just that's all we had. We just had to hide it.
So looking on the map, it's where the Golgotha, where Jesus was
Uh-huh.
crucified, is not far from the Dead Sea.
In Jerusalem,
Yeah.
in Israel. Yeah,
Wow.
it's very interesting. Gosh,
It
man.
is. I'm looking at the Dead Sea actually, and it's the Dead Sea is split up between. Is it technically what is that considered? Because there's a whole thing with the separation of Israel, right?
I'm not 100%
So I
sure.
don't know if they're considered like states or countries or like provinces, but it's split up into 4 different territories.
Hmm.
It's pretty interesting.
I mean,
What where is that one place where they say um, it has a lot of healing powers? The salt or the sand?
the Dead
That's not
Sea.
the. Is it the Dead Sea? No,
Uh-huh.
it's the red. The Red Sea. Red Sea. Is that what it is?
No, the Dead Sea. I'm pretty sure.
Is it where they literally just sell that as like a healing product and people use it on face scrub and
Well, the Dead Sea waters contain minerals as magnesium, bromide, and sodium. The mud contains these minerals with soothing clay.
okay,
Both
yeah. So they
are,
go there and they'll like sit
yeah,
in it and it's supposed to actually be like
detoxify.
almost like having medicine.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
It's supposed to suck all the toxins out of your body.
All right.
So, I mean, this is really interesting, man. It's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot. I mean, I watched like 3 2-hour documentaries. It's and I still have a lot of questions.
Yes. It's so interesting too as you watch like more and more things. Stuff starts like the world starts piecing together a little bit in your head. So like I've been watching a show called Vikings, and they end up in Iceland and Greenland. And the whole time I watched the movie, they were between a bunch of different countries. They're from Norway. They went to um, Denmark, to the Silk Road, to um, to England, and they got lost in sea between Iceland and Greenland, and it kind of started piecing the world together a little bit for me in an area that I've never been before, or don't usually tend to pay attention to in my normal day life.
Hmm.
And it's kind of a cool concept, and that and the conversation tonight has kind of pieced together a little bit more of Israel for me, and the history of just the world. Even if you don't believe any of the religious side of it, it still
Well,
pieces together some sort of the history.
I'll tell you, man. There's something to it. There's a reason why the Bible has been rewritten over and over and over and over, and it still hasn't lost its meaning, as Chris pointed out earlier. It's very interesting that the concepts, the teachings, and the lessons in the Bible, they actually work if you put them into practice.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I mean, we don't really know, right? I mean, I talked to my doctor, and I asked him. He's a he's 94. He's been around for a long time, for basically a century. And I asked him. I said, "What do you think about this?" He says, "There is evidently there is an energy that is way too big for us to comprehend as humans." And when he said that, I kind of got the chills because I felt it. We were outside. I'm looking over in the horizon, the sea. There's an ocean. There's trees. There's homes. There's people. But the sea, like, just it's crazy to think that the sea would have this much of an impact on me, on anybody. Like it, you know, you've been to the ocean, you've been to the
Mm-hmm.
beach, and it's in us to almost be in awe of the magnificence of life. Like, for example, a couple weekends we talked about how you went to the mountains, I went to the mountains that same weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever stopped and looked around and said, man, this is like not an accident. How is this happening? you
Yeah.
know I stopped, and I thought just that, and I asked myself that question and said, how is this possible? There's nature kind of just, it kind of just, I don't know. I think we're always looking for something that it's been here all along. Whether it's an idea or it's a belief, or there, it's always been here. It has been here before us. It will be here before. It will be here after us. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think I have anything much more to say than that. Like, just life is so bizarre. The fact that I'm here, we're talking through the internet, where our parents couldn't do this back in the day.
Yeah.
Like this, like I think that we give ourselves too much credit on creating things that we forget about the about the real things that matter in life, which is like who created the mountains, who created this world, like why haven't we seen neighbors if they exist? I mean, you mentioned earlier, the COVID relief bill where the government is supposed to release information on what they have on UFOs. So is this all an accident? Is this like what is all this?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this conversation is not over. I think that we have many more podcasts in this topic. I hope that we can get to in the next few episodes.
Yeah.
So I think we beat the dead horse.
Yeah. We'll have
I
to
don't want
get
to
some
beat
more
the dead horse.
information and come back with.
So before we continue, or before we end this podcast, why don't you tell the people where they can find us?
Check us out on all podcasting platforms: Stitcher, Spotify. Too many to name, but anywhere you get your podcasts, we are there. You can check us out on. I mean, you're on our channel right now. If you're watching on YouTube, um, we do all of our recordings live. We also post on our Instagram. Uh, Funny little video about 10 minutes before we go live every week, and we like to hear different topics. If you guys want to talk about something, we can deep dive in and get some information on at least a week ahead, just so we have time, not the day before. And you can check our merchandise store at Teespring. It's in the description of our YouTube videos. And yeah, we're looking good.
Keep on keeping on. And to end the podcast, I'm going to reread the quote from the lyrics of the song by Depeche Mode. Did you ever listen to that song, Greg?
Yeah, I've heard it.
It's a good song. It's bad or whatever, but it had to do with what we were talking about today, so that's why I chose that song. So here, let me read that again before we take off, and it goes like this. It goes, I don't want to start any blasphemous rumors, but I think that God's got a sixth sense of humor, and when I die, I expect to find him laughing. And with that, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Chris, for being here the entirety of our show. Uh, we hope to invite you to come on in the next couple of weeks, and we will see everybody else later.
Yeah, see you guys.